I want to thank the crew first. You all have been working so hard to make this experience quite enriching, and all the people at Hort and Zed who put this together, thank you. And I know a lot of you who are part of the crew were voluntold to do it, but you're doing it with a great attitude of service and smiles on your faces. So, thank you. I'll tell you a story before I get into my topic. Every morning, before the day began, my day started with a walk to a well, with a rope on my shoulder and a clay pot in the other hand. And the water in the well was about 50 feet down. I would haul it. I'd take 3 or 4 trips, and if it was a clothes washing day, it was 5 trips. It wasn't my favorite. I grew up in a village with no electricity, no public infrastructure, no gas, no health services. And for some of you, you might be thinking, that's just like camping. Believe me, no. You just bring your water. I had to go walk a kilometer a trip. Now, why am I talking about this? It's because my life began in a farming and stone mining community. So I have a deep respect for all the growers, the farmers, and people present in this room. 12 years ago, my brothers and I, we started a school in the same village where I walked the well, because we had an idea, a seed, and a lot of patience and a lot of determination to make a sustainable change, to grow the community. And I think that's the kind of business most of the growers in this room are in. You grow something that didn't exist. That's not an extraction business. That is creating abundance kind of business. So I'm here to talk about how to protect that abundance. You've all heard about cybersecurity. Usually the topic gets quite gloomy. Life has taken me a long way from that village, that well. 23 years in cybersecurity across 4 continents. Last 6 of those years spent at Google defending power grids, national infrastructures, water, government, horticulture sectors. And I've learned a lot from it. I'm still learning. I'm not an expert. I'm an explorer. So currently, exploring the cybersecurity market or the industry from a different perspective. I started Qubit Cyber because I truly believe cybersecurity industry is a little broken. You've all heard the quote from Einstein. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Here we are in an industry that is over a decade, about almost 2 decades old. All of you are spending more and more money in cyber potentially. If not, you will encounter that day, and I'm sorry. But the benefits and the returns and the type of attacks and the type of impact from those attacks hasn't really gone down. And there are many reasons for it. But one of those is we're doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So let me start with my topic. Why does Formula One car have the best brakes in the world? Is it so it can go slow? Obviously not. It is so it can take that turn, floor it in fact, not at 100, 200 on a corner. That's why it has the best brakes. So I read the notes from Sam, who was talking this morning, that he wrote for the book, the foreword that he wrote for the book. And one of the things that stood out to me after reading a little bit of the book is that compliance is a huge burden. It's a huge detractor in many cases for a lot of the growers. And rightly so, when it's done in a way where you just repeat the same thing over and over again, but not to put the brakes so that you can go fast. So we'll touch on this again. Have I clicked quite a few? No, just one. All right. So the old model, which I've talked about, is where data and systems is what we're all trying to protect in cybersecurity. And this is where all of the compliance effort is going into. But we're talking about a newer model where human is the asset that we're trying to protect. And you would understand that because human is the most important asset in horticulture. And how are we trying to do that? And why? Because I guess it's not the technology that will be held accountable when someone's livelihood is impacted or when someone's hurt. So let's talk about some of the physical side of it. We've got technology so deeply entrenched into that process of growing and nourishing our communities and selling at a premium that it's not just nice to have. It's become a necessity to scale. We do need those laser weeders outside, sorry. And I'm not taking a punt at any of the makers here. Please don't see it that way, all right? These are all amazing technologies that are helping us innovate. These are the brakes, in many cases, that are helping us just go fast. But with those technologies, there are risks. And I build technology for a living. I secure it for a living. So I understand. I'm not here against technology. I'm here to talk about how to make it safer or focus it on the human. So one thing that I would like to say about this slide, I'm not going to go point to point, time is of essence, is that software is now impacting people in such a way that it has never done. And software is the only industry, only manufacturing industry, that has given all liability to the consumer, and we'll talk more about that. So, if a laser weeder burns your farm because the 150 million images that it was trained on, somehow that data was compromised, or somehow the weeder itself is compromised, the software maker is not going to take the blame. In fact, the industry is so complex that the software maker, in many cases, can't even take the blame because a lot of the software gone into that gear is not even theirs. It's just open source libraries that their software developers downloaded from somewhere. So the complexity of the current scene is not just one where everyone's saying, we'll just put the software out there and not care about the human. Even if they did want to care about the human, it's complex for them to address it too. But we've actually done this right. You know, if a tractor fails, you can hold the manufacturer accountable. So how are we doing this right in a manufacturing industry, in a physical realm, but got this wrong in software? It's like, and when I talk about this, a lot of people in cybersecurity industry get mad at me because this example just fits the scenario so well. Has any of you in this room clicked on a wrong link or a bad link by mistake? Yeah. So what happened? Did the IT guys come to you and say, you need to be trained? Right? Have any of you gone through those phishing awareness trainings? Okay. You know what's interesting is if you think about this like a tradie, there is a light switch in your kitchen, and once in a while, your kids go up to that light switch and they start shaking, because it's the shock that the light switch gives you. As a trader, you're like, okay, this light switch, has been shocking the family for quite a few weeks now. I need to send them to how to handle dangerous light switch training. Now, as a tradie, you'd be like, I'm going to rip that apart right now, replace it with the one that doesn't shock them. Isn't that logical and the right thing to do? So for decades, this industry has gone in, let's send you to the training that teaches you how to handle dangerous links. Why do we have dangerous links? Let's change the light switch. Now, it's not the easiest thing to do. However, it is if your focus turns to, instead of protecting data, systems, to protecting humans. Because making that link come through all the way to your mailbox shouldn't be possible. It is a preventable harm. Let's make it a little bit more tangible. So for the industry, for all the growers here, you all understand the NZ GAP process. You understand how important certifications are, how important it is to have that passport to ship or to export, or have that ability to export. Let's say if that database is falsified, what is the impact? This is a scenario that is a possibility, right? And to my friends at HortNZ, we are partners with them, we work with them, we're actually creating a digital safety roadmap for them. So again, this is not taking a punt at anybody, but this is a possible scenario where trust for growers is impacted. Internally, trust within the community, but also externally, the community's trust for New Zealand as a market. And that trust is what allows us to sell at a premium. So imagine our clean and green image in a few years' time also had clean, green, and safe. So this story is not a story of doom. I did say that, cybersecurity is all about doom and gloom. Let me move away from that just after this slide, though. Because there is an exponential change that is happening. So what Trevor was talking about, agentic AI. Just before I left Google, we were doing about 50% of the code that was purely generated by AI agents. And I think this year I watched one of the videos from the guys. It's 75%. So for an organization that spits out billions of lines of code, more than 70% of that code is now written by AI, right? Let's think about a scenario where it writes the code, runs the code, makes decisions. Can you hold an agent accountable? Maybe you can hold it responsible. You can't definitely fire it. HR wouldn't know how to talk to it properly because, it would talk back in the smartest possible way with great arguments. But that point around accountability and responsibility of those decisions is something that we need to deal with. We are grappling with it. We're not dealing with it because we're still coming at it from the old school traditional thinking around let's protect data, let's protect system. The human is getting forgotten. So I'll leave that question to you guys, who should be held accountable when an agent hurts somebody or when an AI or autonomous system hurts somebody? Later for discussion. All right, so this is where I guess this is not a story of doom and gloom, instead a story of hope. The accountability gap will just become a little bit wider. But right now, I think we, as an industry, or for you as well, because you do a lot of certifications, you have auditors come and visit the farm, the sites. So you understand that in a physical reality. These are point-in-time assessments. In a world where code changes every minute, point in time is not going to cut it. Because that's just an assurance to say we were good when the auditors were there last year. When systems change rapidly, fundamentally, and make decisions based on that change, the point-in-time assurance regime or culture is not going to cut it. If we want digital trust, we need to think in terms of, if a system fails, can it fail in such a way that it will not cause any harm? So the light switch again. Sure, because every system fails. We need to accept that reality. Failure or a cyber attack, which is a failure as well of controls, can we just consider it a state? And for those of you who come from an engineering background, you understand that failure management is actually a practice. So why can't we bring those principles back into our ability to do continuous assurance? Let's put those agents to work. Let them get some of this, the voluminous work out for us. But the question around responsibility and accountability still remains. And I don't have the solutions for it. This is a cliffhanger ending, unfortunately. But the continuous assurance is a way to start to get those answers. And that's why I'm an explorer, not an expert. Digital trust in the world today actually requires an overhaul. And we're starting to see that that comes from changing our approach to digital safety and then proving it continuously. So when authentication, when a login fails, the entire database is not exposed. Why build a system like that? And test that failure right from the beginning. So I'll leave you with some thoughts. I would love to see this in less than 10 years, if possible, is that we not only have clean and green, but we also have digitally safe ecosystem where growers take in the technology, they challenge the vendors who bring in the technology, the software makers who are not held liable today, and they try and hold them accountable, ask for more. All right, I'll leave these questions. I don't have the answers for them, but I would love to explore it with you.
Wonderful. Round of applause for Bhojraj. Thank you very much to both of you for your insights this afternoon. We have some time for some very quick questions, and they are coming in via the app. Dinah says, in a tokenized world, how do you manage the risk of growing weather issues and biosecurity threats destroying your harvest?
There's no set rules on any of this stuff yet. It's all emerging. And so what the current evidence suggests is that that's the risk you take as an investor in a tokenized harvest. So you get the wins and you get the fails, just like any other investment. So the good news for growers is that that risk is borne by the community that's tokenizing and funding the harvest.
You talked about tokenization of real-world assets. Can I just get a show of hands, because I'm curious, how many people understand what that means? Okay, could you give us a little explanation of what tokenization of real-world assets looks like?
Sure. So the easiest way to think of it is like you're buying shares in something that's tangible and real. So I talked about the tokenization of a property development. That's an industry that is normally excluded to only property developers, and liquidity doesn't move quickly in that industry. It's the same in primary industries and other sectors where tokenized real-world assets are starting to emerge. It's the ability to bring liquidity where there previously wasn't and allow regular investors, regular people, to take a share in assets that are important to them. So the token is a share of 100% of the yield of a harvest, and you buy those shares, they're validated on blockchain, so the mechanism is done by blockchain, but the way to think of it is...
So it's like an ownership share in a physical asset, like a house, and it's moderated and managed through the blockchain technology, is that right?
Correct.
And what would you say to people in the room who've maybe heard about NFTs and other forms of technology that have fizzled out, thinking, well, this is just, what you're talking about here is just another iteration of that?
Sure. Well, ironically, NFTs are the technology that will be used to tokenize real-world assets. So an NFT is just a token that can't be changed or modified. And you want that, right? You want your piece of that harvest, for example, to not be able to be manipulated or changed by anyone, and you can prove that you have ownership over that. And that's what the NFT does.
Bhojraj, based on some of the information that you've shared this afternoon, what is one step that people in the room can take in their own businesses or share with their members to maximise the opportunities that are out there and mitigate the risks?
To increase your own trust and confidence in technology, instead of taking the burden on yourself on making sure systems fail in such a way that your information is not compromised, put that on the software provider. Ask your vendor to do more. Let's start holding technology makers a bit more accountable than they are today.
Wonderful. Thank you both for your time. We are out of time for questions, but we appreciate your insights. Let's give them both a round of applause. Thank you.